Morning, class. Glad to be able to give you this instruction. Of course, I'm not able to be with you this morning. I have a doctor's appointment for my daughter, so look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Expect you all to behave well and do everything that needs to happen. Look forward to being able to share with you exactly what we need to learn and do today. We are continuing working in data and populations. We're really going to be looking at something called MAD. It's the mean absolute deviation. And mean absolute deviation, although it sounds difficult, although it sounds scary, is not that bad. And just want to walk you through it. We're going to have a couple of questions on that. We have a test on Wednesday this week. So let's begin to dive in and look at why MAD matters, what we can do, how we use it in real life, and why we need to learn it here in seventh grade. So, what is MAD? MAD stands for mean absolute deviation. And we know what mean is. Mean is the average of a group of data. So we have to figure out what absolute deviation means. And it tells us how spread out or consistent a group of numbers is. And what that really means is we're looking at the mean, the average, and we're looking at the distance of every single data point from that one average point to help us know how spread out the data is, how consistent it is. The lower the MAD, the lower the mean absolute deviation, the more consistent the data. So I know that's a lot of words. So let's look at some examples, see if it helps us understand it. So here's a real life example. Quiz scores. We just took a test on Friday. These could be your scores. We had an 80, an 82, a 79, a 78, and 81. Now, what we've been doing, looking for median and mode, we put it in order. When we do mean, we don't have to put it in order because we're only adding it together. So the first step is to find the mean, the average. We add it up together, we divide by the number. So we'll add all this up together, we'll divide by 5. Step 2 is find the distance from the score from the mean. So once we find the mean, now we're going to have to figure out how far each of those numbers are from that number. And finally, find the average of those distance, divided again by the same number of numbers. That's our math. So let's practice it. We have those numbers. We have 80, 82, 79, 71, and 81. We're going to add those together. 80 plus 82 is 162 plus 78 and 79 and 81. And we find out that when we add all that together and divide by 5, it equals 80. And so, you're adding that together, you're thinking through that, you're saying, okay, let's double check Mr. McCurdy because he makes mistakes sometimes. 80 plus 82 plus 78 plus 79 plus 81 equals 400. Now you divide 400 by 5 and we get 80. So we now know what our mean is, what our average is, which is 80. Then we look at the distance. And this looks a little confusing, but it's really just taking 80 minus 80 is 0. 82 minus 80 is 2. 80 minus 78 is 2. 80 minus 79 is 1. And 81 minus 80 is 1. So as we're finding this, we're always putting the largest number, whether it's the mean or the score first, and we're subtracting so we don't get confused. Remember, I did tell you it was the distance. So you can subtract either way. If you get a negative number, it is the absolute value. So an absolute value is never negative. It's always positive. The reason it's positive is we're looking at distance. We're looking at how far from 80 is each of these scores. And then we add those up. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 divided by 5 is 1.2. And we now know the mean absolute deviation is 1.2. Is that a big number or a small number? Well, that's a small number. So that means our scores of these five scores we looked at are close together. Now, if the mean absolute deviation number was larger, if it was 8 or 10, then our scores would have been more spread out. So the mean absolute deviation helps us know how consistent the numbers are, how useful they are. So why does it matter? It helps us see how consistent the data is. In sports, it can help us see who the most reliable player it is. It isn't the number of shots you're making. It's the number of shots you make every single game. What is your MAD? What is your mean absolute deviation? Are you consistently making shots each and every time you go out? Are you consistently hitting balls and getting on base each and every time you're playing baseball? Are you consistently performing at this level? That's what we're able to look at when we use math. In school, we use it to figure out the test scores, to figure out how well the class is doing. And in life, you can use it to figure out how much money you're spending. Are you spending wildly one week and barely spending anything the next week? Is your MAD really large one week and really small the next week? Well, then maybe we need to look at your budget and figure out how to budget better. So MAD is a very useful tool. It's something we can use in our life, and that's why we need to learn it. So here's a quick recap. How do we do it? We first find the mean. We add up our data points. We divide by the number of data points. We find each other's the number's distance from the mean. We look at each of the numbers' distance from the mean. So again, we subtract the mean from the number. That gives us a value, and it's always positive. Even if it comes out negative if you're using your calculator, because we're looking at the absolute value. We're looking at the distance. Finally, we find the mean of those distances. That's MAD. We add up those distances, we divide it by the number of data points, and we get our MAD. So let's practice together. You have a worksheet in front of you, and the first example is there. It says first we need to find the mean of the data set, add all the values, and then divide by the sum of that value in the data set. Whew, that's what we just talked about. So the data set is 10 plus 12 plus 18 plus 19 plus 21, which is 80, divided by 5, and that gives us 16. Then we have to find the distance from 16 from each of those data points, each of those numbers that we looked at. If you look at the number line, you can count over from 16 to 15, 14, 13, 12, the 1 over 4. All the way over from 16 to 10 goes over 6. From 16 up to 8 goes to 2. From 16 to 19, it goes to 3. From 16 to 21, it goes to 5. We add all of those up, and we get 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15, plus 5 is 20, divided by 5. And we get the MAD as 4. It gives us the average, the mean absolute distance average of our data point. So is a 4 a big number or small number? I guess it would probably be a little bit on the bigger side compared to the last example we looked at. But it all depends on what the data you're now analyzing is. If you're getting a bunch of MAD in the 20s, 4 would be a small one. So we'll have to pay attention to that as we go forward. All right. I'll do one example with you, and then you're going to have to do the rest of the worksheet on your own. There's a second worksheet if you cause trouble, and it's all up to the substitute if he passes it out or she. So you don't get to make that call. That is up to the teacher in the room. So here's our data set, 2, 2, 3, 5, and 8. So again, we're going to find mean first. So I drew that line. You see that red line? I drew that in the box. So I put my mean on top. I put my MAD on the bottom so I don't get confused. Then I add my numbers together. 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 8 equals 20. And then I take 20, I divide it by 5, and that equals 4. So my mean for this data set is 4. Now I have to figure out the distance. My mean is from each of those data points, each of those data numbers. So I look at 4 minus 2, and 4 minus 2, and 4 minus 3, and 5 minus 4, and 8 minus 4. I calculate that out. I get 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 4, which equals 10. 10 divided by 5, the same number of data points, it equals 2. So our MAD, the mean absolute deviation from this data set, is 2. So don't forget to practice with your classwork. I expect you to get this done. And like I said, if necessary, there is another page. You're able to practice this. This will be on the test on Wednesday. We will do a practice test tomorrow. So look forward to seeing you all and enjoy your day. And remember, behave for the sub or you will get infractions or referrals. This is how it works. Thanks.